Do your snubber lines get all slimy and gross and horrible to handle? Does your water pump fail way too often for no apparent reason, which means you'll have to replace it like once every year? Or do you have hatches and portholes that leak? Of course you do. There's only two types of portholes, those that leak and those that will leak. Up next, I'll share with you fixes to these and other issues. Things I picked up along the years, because being old, it has its perks. We are sailing around the world the hard way. On our abandoned 1980s ketch, refitted on a very tight budget, now has all the luxuries you could ever want. This channel is more about technical advice and sharing knowledge than the journey itself. Sometimes with science, sometimes our mistakes, but always having fun. When you're out at anchor, it's important to have a snubber, because not only does it remove the load from your windlass, it also allows the whole system to stretch. These are our snubber lines right here, and they are two nylon lines that connect to the chain, because nylon lines stretch, chain does not. Here's the issue. In order for the lines to stretch enough, it needs to be really long. And that means that the lines are usually underwater. And that means they get super slimy and gross. So here's a tip and a trick to prevent that from happening. I'm sorry about the wind, today is a little bit windy. So we use mooring compensators on the lines. That means that this short scope of line stretches as much as like 20 meters of nylon line, which is awesome. And that means that our lines do not have to go inside of the water. We have two over there for a little bit of redundance, and we never ever get slimy lines. There, problem solved. On the subject of anchoring, when you're not in a very crowded anchorage, you can always use a marker buoy for your anchor. This will provide two great features. The first one is that you always know where your anchor is in relation to the boat. But the second one, even more important, is that if for some reason your anchor gets stuck, you can use the line on the anchor buoy to pull it up. And that is a great safety feature. Now, it does come with downsides. First of all, if it's a busy anchorage, there's always going to be one person that's going to try to pick it up because it thinks it's a mooring when it's not. And the second issue is that, and this happened to us, if you're not careful, you might get the line tangled in your propeller. So you have to be careful. But other than that, it's very, very useful. This tip is about health and strength. Now, I am right-handed, which means I do most of the tasks with my right hand, which also means that my muscles on the right hand are much stronger than on the left hand. And I believe this is a normal problem. What I do to try and compensate for that is that when I'm on the boat, I actively try to use my left hand to use the winches and I try to get used to use the winches with my left hand. This provides me with enough exercise to finally build up the muscle on my left arm. If you are left-handed, it goes the other way around. Use the boat as a gym. It's really helpful. There you go. Problem solved. If you are lucky enough to have an electric windlass, it means that you have buttons to control it somewhere. But you can get a remote control which will allow you to use the windlass anywhere on the boat, which is very useful. Now here's the issue. Because those remote controls are usually marine grade, that means they're going to be super expensive, and also when they break, which they will, it's going to be super difficult to replace. Now, here's my solution to that. You can use any winch remote control, like this one, for instance. This one is from Amazon. It costs like, I don't know, 20 bucks. It comes with two remotes and one box to connect to the relay box. And it works just fine. You turn it on, actually I turn it off, and you can control the windlass from anywhere aboard, and it has quite a long range. Now, the beauty of this is that if it fails, just get another one. It's 20 bucks, and it comes with two. This one has been working for almost 3 years now, and it's still doing fine. So yeah, problem solved. Water pumps and bilge pumps are notoriously prone to failure. Usually what happens is that the switch fails, not the pump itself. Well, although the motor on the pump can fail as well, and maybe need the brushes replaced, that is really not that common. The issue usually is with the switch. In the case of a bilge pump, you have a floating switch that turns on when, it floats, and in the water pump, you have a pressure switch that turns on when there's low pressure. Now, every time they cycle, they make a little spark, and that spark erodes the contacts until it doesn't make contact anymore. But there's a solution to this problem, which is to outsource the job of turning on and off to a relay like this. What this does is that all of the current for the motor to work is no longer going through this switch, it's going through the relay. And if that fails, you just have to pull it out and insert a new one. Very easy fix. But those things, they last much, much longer than the tiny micro switches on the pumps or the switch on the floaties. And because the current now going through these switches is so low, it doesn't arc. Therefore, it lasts a long time. There you go. Problem solved. I talked about this on another video, but for those of you that didn't see it, here it goes. When you are at anchor or at a marina, if your halyards are hanging down the mast, they have a terrible tendency to bang on the mast and do a horrible racket. So the solution is usually you have to put them on the, attach them to the lifelines. Where are the lifelines? Here. Attach them to the lifelines, or use some kind of line to pull them away from the mast so that they don't bang. But you have to do this every time, because those lines will then interfere with the normal operation of sailing. They will interfere with the lines. So the solution, having mast steps, because intertwining the halyards on the mast step will guarantee that they will never ever bang again. If you're interested in making your own steps, I made a video showing you exactly how to do that. It's linked at the end of this one. So yeah, halyards not banging on the mast, problem solved. Every single hatch and porthole on a boat will eventually leak. And the solution normally is to remove the whole thing and bed it and install it again. Now, that's a big job. In our boat, it's a huge porthole. You can almost call it a window. Anyway, there's a solution for this. It's not perfect, but it works really well, which is this thing. Again, not affiliated, I just use it because it's awesome. What this is Captain Tolly's Mystery Creeping Crack Cure, and what it does is that it uses capillary action to get into the cracks. Let me see if I can film this. So as I put this here, this will go down into the cracks, and then when it cures into a rubbery substance, thus creating a new seal for the porthole. This is not perfect because you can only use it when it's absolutely dry, otherwise it will not cure. So if it's raining and you have a leak, you cannot use it to fix the leak on that day. You have to wait for it to dry. However, it stopped us now for years now having to remove this whole pane of glass because we can manage the small leaks that appear with this thing. Again, not affiliate, I don't know these guys, but just like the product. It's a quick fix. There you go. Problem solved. And one more thing, we created a WhatsApp community where I post regularly about, sailing, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. So if you want to get these posts, check it out on the description, and there's a link down there. And as always, if you're still watching, you're a freaking hero. And to all our superheroes, thank you so much for supporting the channel. That's all I got for you today. Cheers. Bye.